I suppose if someone were to ask me, how does this all end? I would bet money that this all ends the way the Special Tribunal ended. And I'll go from the beginning to the proactive dismissal of all the credible information provided, all the conspiracy, all the whole sideshow that was trying to emphasize that the Special Tribunal for Lebanon was a conspiracy, an American Israeli-backed mission. Sole purpose was to put pressure, whether on the Syrians or on Hezbollah. And 15 years of that process, the investigation, the tribunal, the eventual verdict, you had a long process of whatever it took to make sure that mission lost credibility, at times eliminating people feeding information to the tribunal. Wissam Eid comes to mind, also Wissam al-Hassan. Reaching the point where the tribunal is still official, as in the Lebanese state is still funding it, or its share of the budget. It's never shut down from the Lebanese side. It's issues today unrelated. But the tribunal sort of wobbles ahead to a very whimpering conclusion, which is, we know eventually the group responsible, we have a name, and you can do nothing about it. So that the political cost is negligible. The facts are there is a verdict, there is a conclusion, but at the end it doesn't matter. So you eliminate the political cost for eliminating a politician. And you also, by extension, you eliminate the political cost for other assassinations. So the whole process of an investigation leads you nowhere on the Lebanese side. I'll say this, I'll try to explain. A population that gets tired and people move on. People eventually adjust to that abnormal situation. And you move on to other political issues where this actually becomes a stumbling block for the parties that wanted the tribunal established. And that's part of it, where you reduce the interest from people, particular politicians, who want to see the tribunal not only reach its conclusion, but serve justice, so that a former prime minister whose father is assassinated, and the reason that whole tribunal begins to begin with, that individual becomes the preferred prime minister under Hezbollah's terms. And so many deals are made in the meantime, so many adjustments, so many principles tossed out, so that it's really about political survivability under Hezbollah's watch. Other individuals are scared to go any further and they retreat. Whether that's Walid Jumblat in 2008, whether that's an entire population that saw what could happen if you push through issues that impact Hezbollah's security apparatus. You have battles on the streets, you have people getting killed, You have what looks like a civil war, and by de facto it was a civil war, at least for a few days, if not a few weeks. So the cost becomes severe. An airport security official fired is reinstated. Any concern regarding the telecom network, it's not looked at again. So the proxy system and the proxy security remains intact. And actually, add to that, gets more entrenched over time. And the reason I start with the Special Tribunal is because that's the only investigation that has been. That's the only followed through chain of events where it was not only international and deemed credible by everyone except select parties in Lebanon, which seem to have higher standards than anyone else in the world. You can throw those standards away because that's just hot air. It reaches a verdict. But that's 15 years of waiting and waiting and waiting, and by then, we all know the answer anyway. So we have that fact, we know it, we can't do anything about it. I think that is what's happening right now. This is speculation, could be completely wrong, but it's a gut feeling that a lot of this is performance. Trying to make someone like Tarek Bitar, or a judge prior to him, or even his potential replacement, if that happens, which I don't think will happen. I think a lot of this is just making the whole process, delegitimizing the process, and making a judge like Tarek Bitar, who seems to be honest, he's kept his integrity, he's doing his job, and he's concerned with the outer orbit of the regime, that if you can delegitimize the process and make him look like he's working, once again, whether it's for the Americans, whether he's an agent, whatever you want to call him, these names, these accusations that are hollow. But with time, and if you elevate the rhetoric to the point that you're giving a cost to that kind of investigation, I think people do eventually back down, even if it's at the magnitude of the port blast. People, not necessarily the population. I don't think the population's backing down, or NGOs, or whatever, even probably diplomats and international figures that would never use those terms. But you do see a situation almost a year and a half after, or whatever, a year and a few months since the port blast, where there's every obstacle you can imagine has been thrown in to the process. Speed bumps on the way, suspensions, cases brought against Bitar that are reversed. And it's a delay tactic. Could be for immunity reasons. It could be for other reasons too. But it's sluggish. And I think it's going to continue the way the Special Tribunal continued. It's a gut feeling. I think it'll be allowed to carry on. And I think because the cost to throwing it under the bus completely, that's not the right way to describe it, of eliminating the investigation or sacking Tarek Bitar today, after that type of speech that Hassan Nasrallah spoke yesterday, I think that would just be too obvious. And I think this is just to make him look bad, to make Tarek Bitar look bad. It's to make the process look bad. It's to make the judiciary look worse. And it's just to discredit, so that you can have it both ways. You can have a local investigation. It's not internationalized and doesn't seem like it will be, even though it should be. But it won't be. The Lebanese state has to do that, has to request it. And in 2005, it was a different state, albeit one that was already under immense pressure but you had enough politicians at that moment, and you had a lot of backlash to what happened to Rafiq Hariri. And you had also particular pressure, not just against the Syrians, but domestically. Hezbollah could not simply eliminate that process. But you end up with a long-term investigation that's watered down. I think we will have the same situation. It could take years. You will eventually even have potentially names or figures or somebody arrested. Maybe even a collection of individuals arrested. But it'll be the diminished conclusion. It'll be the verdict that does not impact Hezbollah's infrastructure. And I think looking at it in another way would not add up properly. But it's too soon. That's just a hunch. It's a gut feeling. Bitar stays. Investigation resumes. One day a verdict is issued, and potentially somebody's arrested, or more than one person is arrested. Maybe not. But it won't be the type of justice a city like Beirut deserves following the port blast, or the Lebanese people, not that they demand it, but they deserve it. They deserve an end to impunity. They deserve all the answers for what happened. I think that will not happen. I don't think that's in the cards. And it's also important to remember Tarek Bitar operates within the Lebanese system as we know it. It's not like these are external players that are looking at it from afar or from the outside. They're in. It's in the system. Tarek Bitar is in the system. He can only go so far. And I don't think he will go. I don't think he has the tools necessary to go further. And the fact that Hezbollah has made it so obvious and so visible, which they're not usually comfortable doing, where they've been the largest threat against the process, I really think at the end of the day, this is just to discredit. Like they tried to discredit the tribunal. And maybe over time, enough people bought into that rhetoric. Maybe years from now, they'll adjust a bit to this type of rhetoric once more. And I hope that's not the case. Anyway, thank you.